Hi, how are you? Welcome to today's lesson. Let me wish you happy birthday one more time. Happy birthday. So, did you have a chance to look over the videos and run through the flashcards? That's great. You have any questions? Super. So, if you saw the video and you looked at the flashcards, I'm sure you realize today's lesson is going to be about verbs, about verb tenses. The three tenses you've learned so far, that simple present, that present progressive, and that simple past tense. Now, that simple past tense is the one you had a few issues with when you wrote your birthday essay. So we'll go into extra detail about that. After today's lesson, you should feel much more confident about your ability to communicate in these three verb tenses. Feel much more able to use English to your advantage when you want to talk about something that's happening now, something that happens all the time, or when you want to talk about something that's happened in the past. So you should be able to do all that after today's lesson. You have any more questions before we go forward? Great, let's go ahead and move on into today's lesson. So here we go. Here's our review of the simple present, present continuous, and simple past tenses. Now, what's the difference between these three tenses? It's pretty simple. It all has to do with time. It's about time. So to get a visual sense of this, we can look at these tenses on a verb tense timeline. On the left, we have the past. On the right, we have the future. In the middle, we have the present time. So to the left are things that have already happened. To the right are things that have not yet happened. And in the middle, that's what's happening now. That's what's happening at this moment. So be able to visualize where these verbs fit on this timeline is going to help you understand which tense to use. So first of all, the simple present, or the present simple as they call it here, this is going to happen anywhere along the timeline or all along the timeline. It can be a repeated action, I eat lunch every day, or a general truth, rain falls from the sky. So repeat after me, I eat lunch every day. Rain falls from the sky. Great. Now, how do we form the simple present tense of regular verbs? It's pretty easy. You're going to take the infinitive, that form of the verb that has to in front of it, to be, to think, to drive. That's your infinitive. To get the base, you're going to take away that to and just have the word that represents the verb sitting there by itself. So for example, to walk is the infinitive of walk. And it's simple enough. The base of walk will be walk. So to walk becomes walk. Just take that to away, get rid of the to off the infinitive. You can get that base form. That's going to help you construct the simple present tense. You can see there's two different forms for most of these regular verbs. In the first person singular, second person singular, and first person plural and third person plural. You're going to say walk, but in that third person singular tense, conjugation of the present simple tense, that he walks, she walks, it walks. It's going to be slightly different. It's going to have that S at the end. So it's going to be walk in all the forms except that third person singular, the he, she, it form, or the proper noun form. There it's going to be walks. It'll just be slightly different. So repeat after me. I walk, you walk, he walks, she walks, it walks, we walk, you all walk, they walk. Good job. Now there's also a simple present negative form we've learned. Now to form this simple present negative form, you're going to conjugate to do in the simple present tense and then add not before the base form of the verb. And let's see that in action. That's going to look like this. You can see, again, it's going to be the same form everywhere except in that third person singular. Everywhere else, it's going to be do not, and there it's going to be does not. So it's going to follow that same pattern once again, and that'll look like this. Repeat after me. I do not walk. You do not walk. He does not walk. She does not walk. It does not walk. We do not walk. You all do not walk. They do not walk. Great job. Now, for less formal speech or writing, you can form a contraction of do or does and not. That will form don't or doesn't. And you can use this in just about any kind of speech. And you can also use it in your less formal types of writing. For more formal academic or business writing, you're just going to want to go ahead and spell out do not or does not. But in somewhat less formal situations, don't or doesn't will also be appropriate. So let's see how that looks. One more time, it's that third person singular that's going to stick out, be the sore thumb, be the outsider at the party. All the other forms, it will be don't. But in that third person singular, it's going to be doesn't. So repeat after me. I don't walk. You don't walk. He doesn't walk. She doesn't walk. It doesn't walk. We don't walk. You all don't walk. They don't walk. Great, good job. Now we've also learned that present progressive or present continuous tense, you may also hear it be named. Again, it's going to have to do with the time, has to do with the time. Let's think about time. That's what's going on. So how's this present continuous tense going to fit on that timeline? It's going to be right in the middle. It's going to be now. It's going to be at the present time. It's going to be in the current moment. Did it happen before? We don't know. Will it happen again later? We don't know. We don't care. We just know it's happening right now. That's what signifies the use of the present progressive tense. That's when you're going to want to use it to describe actions that are happening in this exact moment, right now. So actions happening now. Repeat after me. John is smiling. Great. Now, how do we form this present progressive tense? Well, it's another helping verb. It's not do this time. It's going to be to be. And this time you're going to have three different forms. There's going to be an am, an are, and an is. So you'll use one of those, and then you'll use the gerund form of the verb, or the present participle is another way you may hear this form described. What's that? That's that form of the verb that's going to end in ing. So let's see how that looks. On the left, you can see you're going to take the pronoun, add the form of to be, and then you're going to add that present participle or that gerund. And that's how you're going to form this present continuous tense. So repeat after me. I am, you are, he is, she is, it is, we are, you all are, they are. Great. So that's going to look like this once you add that present participle or gerund. It's going to be I am walking, you are walking, he is walking, we are walking, these kinds of forms. So repeat after me. Again, this is the action that's happening right now. This is how we describe what's happening at this moment. So repeat these forms. I am walking, you are walking, he is walking, she is walking, it is walking, we are walking, you all are walking, they are walking. Great, good job. Now there's also a negative form of this present continuous tense. To do that, you're going to add not in between the form of to be and the helping verb. You're going to use this to describe what is not happening at this moment, what is not happening now, what is not going on. That's when you're going to want to use this negative form of the present progressive or present continuous tense. And that will look like this once you add in all those elements. You can have an am not, an are not, an is not. And let's run through all these. Repeat after me. I am not walking. You are not walking. He is not walking. She is not walking. It is not walking. We are not walking. You all are not walking. They are not walking. Great. Awesome. Now you can have two styles of contractions that you can use with this present continuous tense. In the left column, you can see you can contract the form of to be with not and get aren't or isn't. In the right column, you can contract the pronoun with the form of to be and get things like I'm, you're, he's, she's, it's, we're, you're, there. Both of these are valid. Again, you can use these forms in almost any form of speech, except the absolutely most formal speech in writing. If it's kind of formal at all, you're probably going to want to go ahead and spell out is not, are not, spell out the forms. But in less formal writing, really, this could be appropriate as well. In almost every kind of speech, you can use these contractions. So let's run through the left column first. Repeat after me. You aren't walking. He isn't walking. She isn't walking. It isn't walking. We aren't walking. You all aren't walking. They aren't walking. Great. Now let's run through the contractions in the right-hand column. I'm not walking. You're not walking. He's not walking. She's not walking. It's not walking. We're not walking. You're not walking. They're not walking. Great, good job. Now you may also hear people using ain't as a contraction of to be and not, and this is highly informal. It's considered slang at the very least, and some people might even consider it improper, but you will hear this in songs, in movies, in TV shows. You'll hear it in conversations among young people. Just remember, it's highly informal, even for the slightest formality, you're going to want to avoid ain't. It's really only for casual conversation between you and your friends. And beyond that, you're going to want to avoid it. It can be frowned upon in some circles. So just beware of that. You might hear it, but you don't want to use it in most situations. Now let's move on to the star of today's show, the simple past tense. Ta-da, ba-boom. This is the tense you had a couple issues with in your birthday essay. So we're going to go over this in detail. We're going to give you a real good understanding of how to use this tense and when to use this tense and make you more confident in your ability to communicate about things that have happened in the past when you're speaking English. So you ready to dive in? Let's do this. Let's get a closer look at this simple past tense. Again, it's going to have to do with time. All of this is about time. The simple past tense, it's going to be a little different than the two forms we've learned so far. So remember, I talk. That present simple tense could happen anywhere along the timeline or all along the timeline. That present continuous or present progressive tense, like I am talking, that's only happening now, only happening at this moment, happening at the current time. Now, the simple past, it's going to be a little different. It's only in the past. It's over. It's no longer going on at the current time. Will it go on in the future? We don't know. We just know it happened in the past and it's over. So it represents a finished action in the past. It's going to be to the left on the timeline. Repeat after me. I went there last week. Great. So what are the properties of the simple past tense? It describes a completed action that happened at some time in the past, like I walked. The action may have happened in the recent past. I walked there today. It may have happened in the distant past. I walked there many years ago. The action may have happened once. I walked there yesterday. It may have happened more than once. I walked there 2 times. It may have been habitual or ongoing. I walked there every day. The action may have happened at a specific time. I walked there last week. or it may have happened at an indefinite time. I always walked there. So repeat after me. I walked there today. I walked there many years ago. I walked there yesterday. I walked there 2 times. I walked there every day. I walked there last week. I always walked there. Good job. Any questions about the properties of the simple past tense? Great, let's move on. How do we form the simple past tense? For regular verbs, it's pretty easy. It's not a big deal. You're going to take that base of the verb and then you're going to add on ed in most cases. So unless there are more complicated things being involved, which we'll talk about in a moment, this is going to work most of the time. You're just going to take that base of the verb, add ed, and there you'll get your form to use in the simple past tense. So walk plus ed will give us walked. There you go. Now you've constructed a verb in the simple past tense. It's just that easy. And we got good news. This works for all the conjugations, all throughout the conjugation table. You're going to be able to use this ed form. I walked. You walked. He walked. She walked. It walked. We walked. You all walked. They walked. You talked. She opened it. We asked. I ordered it. They opened it. Now, as I mentioned, there are some cases where it's a little more complicated. There will be some semi-regular simple past verbs that you'll see will end in Y. And in those cases, you're going to change that Y to an I before you add the ED. So Y will change into IED. For example, I copy becomes I copied. I face will become I faced. You can see if it just ends in E, sometimes you're just going to add that D. So there's also another instance where you'll see some verbs that will end in a consonant where they'll double that consonant. This will happen in a few cases with some verbs. So for example, I stop. You don't just add the ED, you add an extra P and then ED. I stop becomes I stopped with 2 Ps. So repeat after me. I copied, I faced, I stopped. Great, good job. Now for verbs that are irregular in the simple past tense, it's not always so easy. It can be kind of complicated. There are just a million different forms, and the bad news is you just got to learn them. You just got to memorize them. The good news is there are only so many of these verbs that you're going to need to use to be able to master everyday English. But there are about 60 or so that you will eventually want to learn to consider yourself fluent in English. Now at your stage, just as a beginner, we're going to bite off about 15 or so of these today. And if you learn this many, you'll be able to communicate in a lot of situations. This will come in handy. You're going to want to know these irregular simple past forms. So for example, to get, whereas that would be I get in the present tense, in the simple past, that's going to be I got. Now to be, you would say I am in the present simple tense. That'll become I was in the simple past. For to go, I go becomes I went. For to say, I say becomes I said. For to find, I find becomes I found. So repeat after me. I got, I was, I went, I said, I found. Great. Now we've got 5 more for you here. To sing, I sing will become I sang. For to bring, I bring will become I brought. For the verb to have, I have will become I had. For the verb to do, I do will become I did. And for to make, I make will become I made. So repeat after me. I sang, I brought, I had, I did, I made. Awesome. Now we've got 5 more for you here. To know becomes I knew in the past tense. To think will become I thought in the past tense. To take will become I took in the past tense. To pay will become I paid in the past tense. And to see will become I saw. So repeat after me. I knew, I thought, I took, I paid, I saw.